Well, Adam, hello. How are
Hi,
you?
hello.
You good?
Yes, good to see you. Yeah,
Yes, and you.
everything
And
fine.
where are you?
I'm actually based in Warsaw, in Poland.
Oh, yeah, I like Poland. It's a great country.
Happy to
I
hear
bet you do.
that.
You are Polish then, I assume?
Yes, yes. Though, I've been traveling, for quite a while in my childhood. So I spent, like 5 years in Iraq, like a few years in Greece. My parents were diplomats, so I've been
Uh,
going with them, in different places.
wow. It must have been interesting,
Oh yes.
especially
I've
Iraq.
been in Iraq during Saddam Hussein times, so that's been actually quite fascinating.
Oh
But
my
but
goodness.
yeah.
That'll
Wow,
be
that
an
is
interesting chapter in the autobiography.
good. So I suppose we kind of first talked when you made a very successful investment and one of many, I believe, for OTB. It was probably April this year, one of a fintech that you invested in the
Yeah,
UK.
fintech OS probably that's one of our investments. So yeah, probably it was the announcement of fintech OS.
Yes, and that's I mean, just for the listeners who perhaps would want to know more. So that was it a Series B investment?
The
Yeah,
60 million.
yeah. And you led the round or you were part of the round?
We were leading Series A,
Yeah,
and we've been, like putting, I would say, obviously, a lot of more money during Series B, but we
yeah.
are not leading. Draper Esprit was leading the round.
Oh yes, yes,
We
yes, yes.
actually, like, I think it's healthy when, like different funds are leading different rounds.
Yeah.
Like we would be happy to lead Series B as well, but even
Okay.
more happy, to welcome Draper Esprit, especially that we know each other well.
Yeah.
Vinoch, who is
Why
running.
do you say that, Adam? Do you just think they bring different skills or different aspects or viewpoints or strengths?
Yes, definitely. Like I do believe that two smart minds is better than one, and especially like in VC. That's, I would say, one of the beauty of VC, that there is something like some people call it competition. You actually compete, but you cooperate, and you cooperate for the joint benefit. This is very different, let's say, from private equity. In private equity, each and every one wants to have, like 100% of the company, or at least, like a majority, and want to
Yeah.
roll, want to throw away the management and hire a new one, and do whatever they want. In VC, it's completely different. Yeah? In VC, you actually don't want to have much more than, let's say, 20%. 20% is good, but not necessarily more. Like 15 is also great. And then, there is a space to invite other partners, to invite other fans. And, like you've got a, like absolutely common goal. You might have a different perspective, but the, end result is exactly the same for everyone. And everyone is hoping, for pretty much the same outcome. So as the interest is aligned, it's great to cooperate with other smart people, because they would have different network, they will have different perspective, they will have different experience, and it's a lot about experience sharing. And thus we love to actually co-invest, we love to bring in different funds to different deals, and of course it all depends, because some people have great skills in a given area, and this is also very useful. So in case of like Draper Esprit, Vinoch is very much focused on fintech. So it's a great guy to have in board and then discuss.
Okay, great. No, that's a really interesting point you've made there, or points that you made. And I suppose, Adam, just taking a step back, because you know, OTB Ventures and I suppose how you either started or founded the fund, your background. It would be really good to sort of understand, where you went from being, the son of diplomats traveling all over the world to OTB and whether it was something that was formed because you felt, perhaps Poland or, Eastern Europe needed more representation in VC. Just, if you could just fill us in on what's on the tin as to why OTB came about.
Sure. So then, like taking, like the deep step back. Yeah. So basically, I've been, like was at the end of the high school. I was going to high school in Athens, Greece. And then it was pretty much a decision whether to study in US or study in Poland. And it wasn't an easy decision. It wasn't an obvious decision. Actually, my parents stayed in Greece and I was supposed either to go to US or Poland on my own. And I applied to some of the schools in US. I applied to some of the schools to Poland. And then ended up thinking, like probably it's important to mention that that time Poland was really changing. That was like really, really early 90s. Okay. So there was like a huge change coming in the whole region, including Poland. So I thought, okay, if I'm gonna go to US right now, I will probably never come back. And I will miss all the opportunities, like that are arising right now in Poland. Because, if it would be, like 5 years earlier, I wouldn't even consider coming back to Poland. But as it was, like early 90s, it was a completely different thing, like you could felt, this wind of change, like literally. So I came back, and then after the studies, I was thinking, where to go, and it was the time that many of the companies, like fast forward, like 4 years, and I thought, okay, probably I would love to work for the management consulting company, and I reached out to the Boston Consulting Group, which at that time was actually doing first projects in Poland. And I remember, like Arnold Holla, the consultant of BCG in Poland, like a great guy, German guy, coming from London. And he called me one day, I was still, studying, and he called me, like one day at something like 9 p.m. I said, hey, like you wanted to help us out here, yeah? I said, sure. I said, okay, so why don't you come? I said, now? He said, yes. So actually, it was actually quite surprising for me, but I said, okay, why not? So I jumped on the taxi, like it was, like 9:30 p.m. that, I started, like kind of a semi-interview with him. And that time, they were renting, like 2 rooms in Regus in a Sheraton. So it was, all quite weird. And then I ended up, again, fast forward, being the youngest employee employed in the offices as they were opening an office a year later. And they put me, like in my contract was a clause saying that I need to have a master degree within 6 months or they will terminate the contract. So I was actually already working for them with this clause that I need to bring them my diploma within 6 months, otherwise my contract is going to be automatically terminated.
Did you have a diploma?
At that time, I didn't have, obviously, so they gave me 6 months to finish this, and I said, okay, I will go for it, and finished, within 6 months. But it was, like, because they normally they wouldn't hire someone without, like a diploma, but they said, okay, like, so we'll call you some kind of a, like a summer associate or junior associate, whatever, like, but you need to have this diploma in 6 months, otherwise, you are gone. I said, okay, fine, fair. So actually I did it. And so I started, like in 97, I started officially. in BCG, and about 99, we started to do some first projects involving internet. Like 99, there was like really beginning of internet. Some of the banks were looking at it, some of the media companies were looking at it. So I actually had a chance to be on 2 projects, one by one, in internet, and I said, wow, that's actually interesting. That's exciting. And yeah, like after some time, I thought, okay, probably it's something extremely new is coming. Strange things are happening. People are actually investing in those startups, giving young people money. So yeah, let's have a try. So I put together a team of 3 friends. So one from my high school, one from my studies, and one from the BCG. And the 4 of us, we decided that we're gonna open an internet startup, something that we would call today a fintech. At that time, the word fintech was inexistent. So there were other buzzwords, like my favorite one was Vortal, which was, like a vertical portal in finance. Like that. These were the concepts of
I
actually
suppose
like
that's why it's finance and not marketing.
And yeah, we found financing and set it up as, like my first startup. So I became the founder and CEO of a company called Expander that again, probably can call it, like a really early fintech. And then a year later, of course, the bubble bursted. So we need to pivot. And a buzzword of 2001 was click and bricks or click and mortal. So these were, like the buzzwords which were showing, okay, like there is, and I don't know if you remember, there was a concept of new economy. So new economy meant, forget about revenues. Revenues, like who cares about revenues? Like there is new economy. And I remember companies were valued by number of clicks or by number of developers. So basically, there was a multiply between 1 and 1.5 million US dollar per one. So if you had, like 100 developers, that automatically meant that you are at least $150 million worth. Yeah. Regardless of what you've been doing, and of course, regardless of revenue, because, who cares about revenue?
And is anybody checking if those people are actually developers?
Probably not at that time. So yeah, so once 2001 came, that was, like everything has changed. And of course, like but okay, so yeah, probably people are not really that much ready to do financial transactions online, or like we're especially focused on mortgages. So it was unimaginable at that time for people to take a mortgage online. So I thought, okay, so let's start opening the outlets, basically, like physical branches, because we saw that the concept work of, like aggregating, navigating. So all those, like attributes that internet was bringing, but then they need a human being. They need someone to sit in front of them, and talk to them like a human being. So I thought, okay, so we need to hire students, basically, because, like they need to be cheap, but they need to talk intelligently. So that sounds like this perfect student.
And they need to not be afraid of technology as well, right?
Yeah, and we basically, took what we had online, we turned the computer, like to face the student. So he was doing actually the same on the internet, what the client could do on the internet as well, because we kept, of course, like the web page.
Yeah, but he's done the user training, and the customer isn't so familiar with it.
So customer was sitting, like watching the face of a student. Student was actually watching this, like our site, and was doing exactly the same and telling the client what he sees, or she sees, like, but it was working, like amazing thing. People were completely excited. We started to grow as hell. Unfortunately, our investor, which was a, like a software company.
What's the name of this business, Adam?
What was the name?
Yeah.
Expander.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was called Expander.
Did expand.
Yeah, it was, like a dynamic name. It's like, I don't know why. I don't remember it, like why we call that Expander. But, like, no, it's been, it's still, the company still exists, actually. Right now, it's in the hands of Aviva.
Oh, wow.
So the insurance, so it changed hands a few times, like we had to exit to GE Capital because, like our investor went to financial problems. So we exited to GE Capital. And then right now it's in, and GE Capital made like a real nice fortune on it.
Mhm.
So we had a bit of, I would say, we had to exit far too early because of financial problems of our investors. So GE Capital bought it really cheap, and then they sold it, like 10 times money. So within like 3 years or so. So
Nice.
they were quite, they must have been really happy with that one. So I moved on, basically. So I decided not to stay there because, like, GE Capital wanted to buy 100%, and I thought, okay, it's a different thing, to be entrepreneur and co-founder and co-owner, and it doesn't make any sense for me to stay in the company. It was still a young company, dynamically growing by young, without equity stake. So I would rather go and work for someone else. Yeah. So I was still, like 20 something at that time. So I moved to UniCredit, and they started to run their investment banking operations in the region. ECM, DCM, research, trading, wealth management, like all I would say broad activities of investment banking. But I had one condition actually at that time. So I, when they were hiring me, I said, okay, but I need to be allowed to do my angel investing, because, like I cashed out a bit that wasn't really that much, but I had some, like something to invest following, the exit from Expander. At the same time, I thought, okay, I still like it, so I want to do that. And for them at that time, like angel investing in tech, it was, like it was so strange. Like I was saying, like I'm gonna collect rare, I don't know, cars or whatever, like who cares? It's a hobby.
It's very niche, businesses.
Yeah, like the guy wanna waste his money, waste his wealth on putting, into some startups, tech startups. It just doesn't make any sense. But okay, like a hobby is a hobby. So they said, okay, go ahead, you can do that. So of course, like it's unimaginable these days, like to allow someone, like to do his own deals in being an angel tech investor. But at that time, it was like whatever, strange, but whatever. So yeah, like, so I've been in investment banking, and I've been doing my own stuff, investing here and there, actually, like I did like I spent in UniCredit, I spent 16 years, and over that time I did almost like 20 different investments, like ranging from US through Europe to Asia. Actually, one more thing that I did in the meantime was, I've set up a bank in Ukraine together with a friend of mine. In this capacity, he actually moved to Ukraine, to Kiev. I stayed in Poland, and I was like just traveling to Kiev something like 50 times over 2 years. So basically, like every second week I was in Kiev. But so like we've set it up a consumer finance bank, like from a complete scratch. He moved on to become the CEO, and I was the board member. And actually, like I already had experience in financial sector, running the financial institutions, and he came from private equity. He was previously one of the first investment managers in Merrill Lynch private equity in London. And so extremely smart guy, like probably one of the smartest I ever met, but had no idea about, like how to run a financial institution whatsoever. So, but then, he spoke Russian, and my Russian was, like quite weak. So that was also like a challenge for me. So we decided that he will run this bank, and actually grew up nicely. So
is that still going?
Actually not, but not because, but that's because of, like the whole turmoil that started in 2015 and then escalated in 2016 following Russian invasion. Yeah. So like in Ukraine, I think 2016, it was, like almost the whole financial sector collapsed. Because, like you all of a sudden, like once, like you subtract Crimea, okay, that was really small. But then, like the east part, and like they told people that they don't need to pay their loans anymore because they are not part of Ukraine anymore.
And then I guess following that, there was just capital flight, just left completely. Yeah.
Imagine, like there are two large regions that all of a sudden doesn't care about, the fact that they, have borrowed any money.
Yeah, especially, finance system relies on trust, right? That the money will come back.
And those guys, like that, I don't know how to call them, who started to rule those, like two regions, said, like you can ignore anything that is coming from Ukraine right now because you are no longer part of Ukraine. You're not a part of Russia. You are not a part of Ukraine. You are, like on your own. But basically, the good thing for you is that all your loans are forgiven. Period. Like that was, like I guess from, this rebels perspective, it was, like an easy promise to give to people or something they could offer because they had nothing to offer, but they could offer them, like that, well, probably, like we won't, be very helpful for you in other ways, but at least, you are also a part of this rebel. So you don't need to pay back your debts. So of course, like for the financial sector of Ukraine, that was quite an issue. But then you could do nothing with it because you couldn't send anyone there because, they were shooting in you. So like, debt collection, like was inexistent, like impossible to do. You could call them, they would not pick up the phone or tell you, go away. And then that's it. Yeah. So yeah, following this, it was a major turmoil in financial sector in Ukraine. Unfortunately for Ukraine, for the sector, and for everyone. But like we had a bit of luck because we exited, like right before that. So that was this is
talk about timing, eh?
Yeah, that's I would say like a real proof that I have at least a bit of luck in my life because like we've signed.
Was that purely coincidental, or did you have some?
Like nobody knew that it's gonna happen. Nobody knew. And we signed in September 2015. We signed the exit documents. And just to give you the scale, at that time, it was one of the leading consumer banks in Ukraine. With our investors included Warburg Pincus, Goldman Sachs. So like it was like a serious operation. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in September 2015, and IMF, IFC, International Finance Corporation. So we signed the exit documents in September 2015. I got money on my account in the last week of October, and in first week of November, the Thermoion Creschatic started. So
Wow.
That was, like exactly, like if there would be a delay of 1 week, I
Skin
wouldn't
of your
probably,
teeth there. I mean,
yeah, I would probably never get the wire transfer, like
Wow.
regardless of signed documents or whatever. So yeah, it shows that I must have a bit of luck. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. And so I suppose that fascinating
yeah,
background,
very fascinating.
Adam. And then is this where you use some of that money to launch OTB, or are we, and
Like I used first some of those money, to do even more angel investing because,
feed that addiction, yeah.
yeah, but then actually the truth is that, like over those years I've been working in banking, I promised myself that this is going to be the last corporation I'm ever going to be working. That, like this very bank, UniCredit, I've been working for. At that time, I was already, like the deputy CEO and CEO successor. So it was really comfortable. So it was really hard to leave. I could play with my own money doing my angel investing.
While you were at work.
Well, it's like being an angel investor is not something that is really very much time consuming. Because like at the end, it's like spray and pray. You look in the eyes of a founder, and you decide whether you trust him or her or not. Like I remember talking, like at least it's of course a completely different thing in a fund when you're running a fund. But if you are an angel investor, and a founder comes to you and says, like I will send you my, let's say, business plan. Tell him or her, don't even bother. Like you're gonna waste time doing this business plan. I'm gonna waste time reading it, and there's not gonna be anything even close to that will be in reality.
How did the angel scene change from, you mentioned when you were starting, it was like classic car collecting and that. How did that sort of change throughout your time doing angel investing? Could imagine that there were a lot of startups that must have known of your existence, and from a passive point of view, it must have been quite easy to get deal flow.
Yeah, so at that time, like I had those, like I had those two my private exits. So I had a bit of money. I knew quite a number of people being, like an entrepreneur, and I would say relatively successful entrepreneur. So I knew the community. And so I had this deal flow. I had quite a nice deal flow, and that was really all about looking at the founder and asking myself, will he or she make it? Because that was the only question basically. That because at the end, being like an angel investor,
Adam, can I just ask, how did you? Was it gut feeling? What was there something that they'd say to you? What was that when you were an angel?
To some extent it is a gut feeling, because but like being an entrepreneur by myself, I believe I can tell whether someone can or cannot be an entrepreneur. Yeah. And of course there are some things that like first of all, it's a for me it's a question, like how much he or she is really committed, devoted, like do they gonna like eat the ground to make it happen? Do they gonna like sacrifice everything to make it happen? For me, that's probably one of the most important questions, because setting up a business these days is probably a bit easier than it used to be, but it's still difficult and it's still risky. Back 10 years ago it was even harder. Today it's a bit easier, but still it is, it's like like some of those founders who are becoming billionaires, this is for a reason, like for many years they need to really go against all odds. And again, then there is only a small percentage of those that really make it happen, because you need to have a bit of luck. You need to have a lot of like commitment and And the thing is that you really need to believe in your, on one hand, believe in your idea, but at the same time, be open to change it. Someone said that, you know, like you need to have a really strong opinion that you can change very quickly. And I think that's very true, because you really need to believe in what you are doing, but then you need to pivot, and then you need to adjust, and then you need to talk to people and constantly, you know, like twist it a bit, you know, like to find this perfect product market fit.
Yeah, you definitely have to be
Otherwise-
risk adverse, right? To ignore a lot of the potential downsides, to go with
Absolutely.
conviction, but then
But
also
at the
know
same
when you need to
time,
steer the ship,
solution.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I like this, you know, like phrase that you really need to have a strong opinion that you can change very dynamically. So for me, this is the most important thing, because again, as an investor, you know, like if a founder comes to me saying, I will be selling, I don't know, whatever, water, you know, like let's flavored water. I said, and he tells me the story. I kind of like this story. Okay, it can fly. I believe you can make it. Then, you know, like if he or she is really determined, you know, we may end up selling, I don't know, flavored chips. I don't care at the end, you know, like as long as it's a success, as long as people are willing to buy it, as long as it's a great company, you know. So so at the end, you know, like for an investor, it's not that important whether this is flavored water or flavored chips, as long as there is a success, and then it's up to the founder to make it happen. And like these days, when we invest as OTB, I quite frequently talk to founders, and they say, okay, so how do you see our cooperation? So the example I'm giving to them is, you know, like imagine, you know, we are going in a car in a long trip, you know, like throughout Europe, yeah? You're at the driver's seat, I'm at the passenger seat, yeah? So what I can do is I can entertain you during the night, not for you to fall asleep with, you know, like with a hopefully intellectual discussion. I can warn you if I see, you know, like an animal or a person trying to enter the road, but in a way not to scare you, but, you know, like to warn you. I can tell you that you need to stop the car, you know, and have some fresh air or a coffee or whatever. I can do all those things, but at the end, you are having a steering wheel, you are having a brake, and you are having, you know, like, and I'm like, and it's all in your hands. You know, if we're gonna make this trip, we're gonna be both happy. But if you're gonna crash it, you're gonna crash both of us.
I'll give you the money for the petrol, but you have to drive.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and then if you're gonna make it, we're gonna be both happy. And there's one thing, we are not switching the roles, you know. It's like
Yeah, I will not be
we are
driving.
embarking on this trip and we're gonna stay as it is, you know, like I'm not touching your steering wheel, but you need to be sure that you really want to make it happen, you know.
And how has the general reaction been from founders to that story when you tell it to them? Are some of them like, what on earth are you talking about? And then others are like, yeah, I get that. I like it. I want you as my passenger. You know, what's and I suppose you're looking at their reaction as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I think the reaction is fairly well. You know, like looking at, you know, like I've never, you know, like it never happened that someone would say, okay, so, you know, like I need to look for another investor.
When do we start the journey?
Yeah. No, basically, I think they like this approach. And I think, you know, like a founder that I want to invest is the founder that doesn't want, you know, like an investor to be too influential, you know, like too hands-on. Investor cannot be hands-on. It's not the role of an investor. And probably the fact that, you know, I was a founder by myself, like for me, it's crystal clear, it's like either you are a founder or you're an investor. These are completely two different roles and you cannot mix them. So I believe by saying this, like this example of this car trip, I think, I'm trying to tell them that it's, guys, it's up to you to make it.
So, Adam, the story you've told us, it's been fantastic, really interesting, and I'd imagine infuses a lot of people on the founder side to want to work with OTB, and also I'd say other funds as well, because you're a very charismatic gentleman, and you have an amazing story. So, just for the virtues of the podcast, the specific focus of OTB, what types of founders are you looking for? Are there particular verticals you're really interested in? The stage, the region? If you could tell us a bit more about the OTB story.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So we are trying to focus on a deep tech, early stage companies which are scaling globally. So we would be typically a Series A investor. We can do late seed, we can do Series B, but I would say the sweet spot would be Series A. So post-product, post-revenue, some early traction, some early clients that already, like help to understand to what extent there is this, like at least an early product market fix. And then what we are looking for is really unique tech, unique IP, intellectual property that can be scaled globally. This is very important for us because we do believe that, like tech, if the tech is good, it's global. If it's not global, it's probably not good. Or, if it can only be good enough for being local, it's definitely not good. So we like those ideas which are scaling really globally, and it doesn't mean that you need to be immediately in China, US, and Africa, but you need to have a model that is scalable and you can enter relatively easy new markets. Additionally, like most of our, I would say, focus and deal flow comes from broadly speaking, Central and Eastern Europe. So anything from Baltics to Balkans, including some of the ex-CIS countries, meaning Ukraine, Belarus, and some others. We are not actually investing in Russia. It's a completely different ecosystem. It's a completely different way of scaling, of building businesses, scaling businesses, and also, because of embargoes, like it's not, exits are not so obvious as well. But basically, like this broadly speaking, like something like 160, 170 million people in the broadest meaning of Central and Eastern Europe. Actually, we also invest in Finland. So it's really broad. And then again, like for us, we don't really look at the businesses who are selling within this region. We are completely not interested in it. We are looking at the talent which is originating or doing the R&D. So we can equally well invest in a like a British, US or Singaporean company which is putting their R&D in the region, because this is our competence, and we tend to like to bring not only money, of course, I understand it's important to bring money, but to bring also some value add and some competence. And for us, this competence is that we know this region very well. We know how to support those companies in recruiting, in scaling, and this is probably something that we can bring to the table. And for instance, one of the companies that we are invested, Bubble Labs, it's a US company with one of the three co-founders being a Polish guy. And he put part of their R&D in Poland, but they stayed in Bay Area, all of them, including this Polish co-founder. And they actually wanted to have eyes and ears in Europe on the ground, helping them to build a team, helping them, like to stay in touch with the team. So we've invested in this company actually something like 2 years ago, together with Dell and together with Intel Capital. Actually, this is the first company that we exited so quickly. So after a year, we exited the company to Cisco. So yeah, it's been already a year that we did it. So yeah, really nice valuation, really nice outcome, triple-digit IRR. So not bad. But this is, I would say, one of the examples of how we look at where we invest. We invest in those companies which are looking at having R&D in the Central and Eastern Europe, and it is basing on the talent in Central and Eastern Europe, but definitely scaling globally.
And I would add that there is a hell of a lot of talent in that region, or those regions you mentioned. I mean, when I was back at Bloomberg, we used to do some, brilliant things with Estonia and, Croatia and Poland, where there'd be delegations of startups coming. And you just see that they were so talented, and perhaps some of the founders struggled with when they pitched to investors in London because of the the nuances in language, but amazing talent.
So Estonia claims to have the highest number of unicorns per capita. Of course, it's like the part of the equation is the fact that like they have 1.3 million people, 1.4. But they have Skype, they have TransferWise, or Wise right now called, Pipedrive. They've got Bolt, Xtaxify. So there is a number of companies actually originating from small Estonia, which are actually quite an interesting global companies. If you look at Ukraine, like that's an interesting case because they don't really have a local market. It's a bit similar with Estonia, and you can also see this happening actually in Israel. You don't have a real local market. Because, if you have 1.4 million people, you don't have a local market. Ukraine is actually not that strong in terms of the GDP and, like the scale of the, I would say, traditional economy to consume the tech. So we don't have a local market for tech. So unless you scale globally from day one, you would never get traction. So actually, Ukraine today is following Israel quite closely in the meaning that if there are two founders, one is flying to US on the next day, and the other one stays to take care of R&D. And this worked perfectly for Israel, and right now it started to work for Ukraine, and you've got great companies like DataRobot. This is pretty much a Ukrainian company. People AI, Grammarly, got great names, which you don't really assume being Ukrainian, but they are in reality Ukrainian companies, in the meaning that the founders, or one of the founders, originated from a given country. They've got R&D there, but they're of course selling globally because like tech is global. So these are actually UiPath from Romania, another perfect case. I
just wouldn't mind digging into a bit, I suppose, on the the US investment scene. Are they becoming more sort of pronounced in Ukraine, in Belarus? Are they going there? Are they setting up offices, or are they just more visible because Zoom and the pandemic?
They're setting up offices. They are setting up offices in London.
Yeah.
So like they need to have an office in Europe because of the time zone, because of ability to potentially fly. But then most of them are not, so I'm not aware of any major US investors sitting anywhere outside of London.
Okay.
But then you've got Zooms, and then you've got like travel, which starts to open. because like in reality, you still want to meet physically a person. And I know it's not, and the situation over the COVID has changed dramatically. So funds are capable of closing the deal without meeting physically a person. But personally, I would prefer to meet a founder at least once.
Okay, got you. That's great. And then just wrapping up on OTB and how you, I suppose, operate in these regions, because you have an immense knowledge of all the different companies that are coming through and the founders, but surely that's built on a network of kind of captains in each country or people who advocate OTB. How's that work?
Well, like first of all, we are working a lot with, for instance, seed funds. So, like it's good to have a strong ecosystem of seed investors or angel investors. So those investors who would be pretty much the first investors. We are rarely a first investors. Investor who would be typically a second investor or a third investor, but I mean in terms of the funding round. But so it's really important to have this network of seed investors or strong angel investors. This is one thing. Second thing is that you want to actually be close to the companies that you already invested in. We've invested throughout the region, so we already have founders in all those pretty much countries that we can reach out to them. And we can build on this even, like more extended network. And then there is also, like a lot of research that we are doing. So we are actually, like we do have analysts who are really looking through the companies, looking through the deals. And we're also, reaching out to some of the founders saying, hey, we see, like that you are doing something interesting.
Yeah.
Why don't we jump on a Zoom and talk?
Yeah. And I suppose last question from me, because just conscious of time. I mean, is it the best time ever for people in these regions to be setting up tech businesses? I mean, is it crazy?
I would say so. It is crazy. It is best time ever. Lots of funds chasing lots of ideas. The ecosystem is being more and more established. So, like even if, like 4 years ago when we were starting, like there were like bits and pieces of the ecosystem. Today, you do have an ecosystem in the region. You do have a lot of investors chasing deals. You have interest from global funds, maybe not, like on the stage of late seed or Series A, but for Series B, you've got pretty much everyone. And this is some, so yeah, this is definitely, if someone is considering doing it, we're doing it. Definitely go for it.
Great. Well, good way to end the call. And look, Adam, been great talking to you. If you are, when you plan to come to London again, I'd love to, have a meeting, breakfast or lunch or drink, and just carry on talking, because I've really enjoyed today. So thank you.
With all the pleasure. The moment there's only no quarantine on the in-flights, I would be more than happy to do so.